wanted to take you guys through some stuff and look at the standard equipment that we're using in photography class, yearbook, TomTom, all those guys that are doing still photos. This is the camera that you're gonna start off with. And I just wanted to show you some of the basic features of the system. So this is the Canon Rebel T6. We also have a bunch of T6Is, I think, but there's not that much of a difference between the two. If you look at it, this is the lens. This is the zoom ring. When you zoom into 55 millimeters, that brings you closer or makes things bigger. You're not actually getting closer because it's not magic. And if you zoom out to 18 millimeters, that gives you a wider field of view and everything gets smaller, but you get more of it in there. This is the lens cap. You do the lens cap, you pinch this little guy, comes off, and there's your lens. You should check to make sure it's not too smudged. This one's got a nice smudge on it right there, if you can see that. See that? Okay. There are two switches on the side of this lens. There's AF and MF. If you switch the AF, MF switch right there, that's going to switch you from autofocus to manual focus, which lets you twist this little guy to manually focus. Never, ever, ever switch that to MF. I'm sure there's an exception to that rule, but for the stuff that we're doing, off the top of my head, I cannot think of any reason why you'd need to use manual focus. Then the stabilizer. For the most part, you're going to want to keep that on too. There might be some times where you want to turn that off, but what that does is it moves the sensor inside the camera around to compensate for when you're shaking your hands a little bit. So it's going to let you shoot at a slower shutter speed without getting that motion blur, that shake blur, which is kind of a bummer. This is the viewer, and this is the screen on there. Let's see, do we have any power in this? We don't. Do we even have a battery? We don't. So I'm gonna have to go back to the school and get a battery for it. But since we're just going over the basic buttons and stuff, that's fine for now. So here is the battery compartment. If you open that up, you can see that there's a slot for the battery to go in and a slot for the memory card, the SD card. Push them both in. There's only one way that they can go. Give it a little bit of force. If it's not going, that's because you're pushing it in the wrong way. So just take it out and line it up. You can kind of see, if you look very carefully, there's pins in there, and that should line up with the pins in your battery. They're both spring-loaded. To get the battery out, you just do this little clip. Let's just double check my bag, see if I have a battery in there, because I might. This is not an SD card. This is an adapter for a micro SD, but it'll work to stick it in there. So you stick it in the little slot. It doesn't want to go that way, so you turn it around, pop it in there. You hear a little click, and then you push it again, and it pops back out. And you can take it out easily. I may have a battery in the charger here, and I do. That's good. This is the battery charger. Little guy flips out. Stick it in the wall, stick your battery in here. Again, just like all the other stuff, there's only one way the battery can go in. You try to do like this, it won't go. It's just, it doesn't, it's like those infomercials, like, are you tired of batteries that just don't fit in their chargers? It just doesn't fit. So pins here, pins right there, little guys to line up, contacts, goes in there. Generally, you want to keep your battery charger either in the one place that you always plug it in so it's always charged. Whenever I'm done with a photo shoot, I always take the battery out and put it on a charger. That way I never start a shoot with less than a fully charged battery. If you just get in that habit, it makes your life a lot easier. And like, oh, I don't know if my battery's gonna live. It's gonna live because you charged it right after you were done. Even if you only shot for half an hour, just get in the habit of charging it. So again, the contacts line up with the pins. Pins in there. Go like this, and then it snaps in place. You pull this little guy, boom, pops out. Let's see if there's any power on that. To turn the camera on, you got this on switch right here. There's no power on that battery, so that's fine. Depending on the quality of your eyes, you may, and like whether you're nearsighted or farsighted, this little diopter switch here, this little dial, you can adjust the focus just in the internal in the viewfinder. That can be helpful you know, if you know that the camera's focusing but it looks blurry, that's probably something in your own eyeballs. So just use that and figure that out. Let's see, other stuff. For the most part, we're gonna leave this dial here. There's all these different modes for like movie making. See, you line up the mode that you're using with the little white line there. All those automatic modes, I don't really like them because I'd rather you make your own decisions. So I just keep it on manual. And if you're in my class, I'm going to be encouraging you to use manual all the time. If you're in photo, I require you to shoot everything in manual. If you're in yearbook, you really ought to use manual. Like, there's no real disadvantage to it. And I find it's easier than trying to remember what the camera's going to maybe do than saying this is exactly what's happening. Last part, we'll get into some of the more advanced controls and how to actually shoot with it in a later video. I just wanted to show you what the basic stuff on the camera is. You got your, this is your neck strap, goes in through here. It's probably already set up. If it's not put on, you just thread it through and then you go through this plastic guy on both sides. Looks like that. It's kind of a pain, but you do it once and it's done. Some of you may have a camera with a neck strap that's attached to here. There's a little attachment and then it's got a swivel. I prefer those. They're a little bit more padded. They hang at your hip instead of kind of banging into your belly. And also because of the swivel, when you pull it up to your face, the strap doesn't get stuck. You know, it doesn't always do that, but there's no chance it will with a swivel thing. So if you've got one of those, congratulations, those are awesome. Finally, a DSLR means that you can change the lens, and it's not that hard to do. When you want to take a lens off or put it on, there's this button right here. You hold that down, and you twist the lens about, I don't know, almost a quarter turn, not even that much. And then it just comes right off. And then this is the mirror that you're actually looking through, and when you take a picture, that mirror flips up and exposes the sensor. Don't touch the stuff that's inside there. You don't want to get smears, you don't want to get dust in there. In fact, generally, you don't want to leave this open any longer than you absolutely have to because you're exposing dust. So what I usually do is when for this video, just to make things clear, I'm leaving it open longer than I would. But I have the lens that I'm going to put on already ready to go so that I can just take one off, put it down, and put the other one in. Now, if you see this little black box right there that I'm pointing to with my finger, what you want to do is line that up with the little black box on the ring, and then twist it, boom, till it clicks. And you can feel that it's not going to go anywhere. That's putting the lens on. It's a fairly simple process, but it's something that you should do a couple of times just to get the feel for it so that you're ready to do it anytime you need to. So that is the basics of the mechanical aspects of this camera. We will get into all the settings that I want you to use, what they do, why they do what they do, all that stuff in subsequent videos. But take a chance, take a minute and play with your camera right now. Just like, okay, take the battery out, put it back in, take the memory card out, put it back in, take the lens off, put the lens back on. If you've got one of the kits with the 2 different lenses, try switching lenses, do that kind of stuff. This is a tool. And just like anything else, the tool is not the creation that you're making. You know, the photography is more important than the camera, but that doesn't mean that the camera's not important. You got to know the camera inside out so you're not thinking about that anymore. If you get wrapped up in the gear for the rest of your life, that's not good. But if you just ignore the gear and think, oh, well, my artistic inspiration will guide me, I think you ought to know how to use the gear that you're using. So, play with it. Get to know it. Get familiar. All right. And I guess I'll charge that battery before I do the next video.